In the quiet corners of America, in small towns where lives are woven together by generations of shared experience, heroes are often forged in silence. They don't seek the spotlight, their names are not household words, and their stories are not broadcast on the evening news. They are ordinary men who, through extraordinary dedication, become the unseen guardians of a nation. This is the story of one such man, a husband, a father, a son of the heartland, who became one of the most elite aviators in the world. A man who, on a brutal mountainside halfway across the world, faced an impossible choice and answered the call without hesitation. This is the story of Chief Warrant Officer 4 Corey Joel Goodnature and the quiet legacy of a life defined by courage. To understand the world that Corey Goodnature ultimately inhabited, you have to go back to the early 2000s. The dust from the fallen towers in New York had settled, but it had been replaced by a new, unsettling reality: the global war on terror. This wasn't a war of front lines and grand armies clashing on open fields. It was a war fought in the shadows, in the jagged, inhospitable landscapes of countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. The enemy was elusive, melting into villages and mountain ranges. In this new kind of conflict, the tip of the spear was not a tank battalion, but a small team of highly trained operators, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Army Rangers. These were the hunters, but every hunter needs a way to get to the hunting grounds, often under the cloak of darkness, deep behind enemy lines. This critical, terrifyingly dangerous job fell to a unit that, by design, most of the world would never know existed. The 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, better known by their chillingly appropriate nickname, the Night Stalkers. The Night Stalkers are not just pilots, they are aerial assassins, masters of the night. Their motto is "Night Stalkers Don't Quit," a phrase that is less a slogan and more a sacred vow. They fly the most technologically advanced helicopters in the world, often just feet above the terrain in pitch blackness and terrible weather, to deliver and extract America's most elite soldiers. To even be considered for the 160th is a monumental achievement. To become a senior, respected pilot within its ranks is to be among the best of the best. And in the heart of this silent elite brotherhood was a man from Clarks Grove, Minnesota. Corey Joel Goodnature was born on March 13, 1965. His hometown of Clarks Grove, Minnesota, is the epitome of small-town America, a place of quiet fields, strong community bonds, and values rooted in hard work and humility. Growing up, Corey wasn't a man destined for headlines. He was known for his steady demeanor, his easy smile, and a quiet competence that defined him from a young age. He was a graduate of Albert Lee High School, a place where he built the foundations of the man he would become. But within this quiet young man was a powerful call to serve, and a specific desire to conquer the sky. He joined the United States Army not just to be a soldier, but to fly. The path to becoming an Army aviator is grueling, but Corey's ambition didn't stop there. He set his sights on the pinnacle of Army aviation, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. The selection and training process for the Night Stalkers, known as Green Platoon, is legendary for its brutality. It's designed to break down candidates both physically and mentally, to see who has the unflinching resolve to fly multi-million-dollar aircraft into a storm of enemy fire and bring everyone home. They are trained to handle any emergency, to know their machine so intimately that it becomes an extension of their own body. They learn to navigate using the stars and the subtle contours of the earth, flying nap of the earth in ways that would seem suicidal to a conventional pilot. Corey Goodnature didn't just pass this trial by fire, he thrived. He emerged as a Chief Warrant Officer 4, a senior and highly respected technical expert, and a pilot of the mighty MH-47 Chinook helicopter. The Chinook is not a nimble attack helicopter. It is a massive tandem rotor beast of burden. In the hands of a night stalker, it becomes a lifeline. It carries troops, supplies, and hope into the darkest places on Earth. To pilot one in a special operations environment requires an almost preternatural sense of awareness and a level of courage that is hard to comprehend. Corey possessed both in spades, but the warrior who flew through the dark valleys of Afghanistan was also a husband and a father. He was married to his wife, Shari, and together they had 2 sons. This was the central duality of his life: the loving family man from Minnesota and the elite soldier tasked with the nation's most dangerous missions. The immense pressure of that life is something few can understand. He would leave his quiet, safe home and step into a world of constant lethal risk. His deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan were numerous, each one a series of missions that will forever remain classified. His fellow soldiers remember him not as a daredevil, but as the consummate professional. He was calm under pressure, meticulous in his planning, and possessed an innate ability to lead. In the high-stakes world of special operations, trust is the ultimate currency, and men like Corey Goodnature were the bedrock of that trust. When Corey was at the controls, the operators in the back of his Chinook knew they were in the safest possible hands. His son Alec later recalled the kind of father he was. He wasn't just a distant figure in uniform. He was a present and loving dad. He remembers his father teaching him how to drive, the simple, normal moments that become precious, indelible memories. Corey was a man who understood the weight of his job, but never let it overshadow the importance of his family. He was fighting for a world where his sons could live in peace, even if it meant he had to spend his own life at war. This profound love for his family was the fuel for his courage. June 2005. The war in Afghanistan is a grinding, relentless struggle. In the remote, unforgiving mountains of Kunar province near the Pakistani border, a Taliban commander named Ahmad Shah is wreaking havoc. He is responsible for a series of attacks on U.S. forces and coalition allies, and he has become a high-priority target. The order comes down to capture or kill him. The mission is codenamed Operation Red Wings. The plan calls for a small 4-man Navy SEAL reconnaissance team from SEAL Team 10 to be inserted covertly onto the slopes of the Sautalosar mountain. Their job is to observe Shah's suspected location, identify him, and call in the main assault force. The 4 SEALs, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, Petty Officer 2nd Class Danny Dietz, Petty Officer 2nd Class Matthew Axelson, and Petty Officer 2nd Class Marcus Luttrell, are some of the toughest men in the U.S. military. But the mountains of Kunar are a fortress for their enemy. Shortly after their insertion, the SEALs' position is compromised by local goat herders. Faced with a terrible choice under the rules of engagement, they release the herders. Within an hour, the team is ambushed by a much larger force of Taliban fighters, loyal to Shah. Pinned down on the treacherous slopes, fighting for their lives against overwhelming odds, the SEALs make a desperate call for help. Back at Bagram Airfield, the call sets off a frantic scramble. A Quick Reaction Force, or QRF, is spun up. This is the moment every soldier in special operations prepares for, but hopes never comes. The rescue of comrades who are trapped and facing certain death. The mission is exceptionally dangerous. The enemy knows the SEALs are there, and they will be expecting a response. The terrain is a death trap for aircraft, with high altitudes that rob helicopters of their power and deep valleys that create perfect ambush corridors. 2 MH-47 Chinooks from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment are tasked with the rescue. In the command pilot's seat of the lead helicopter, call sign Turbine 33, is Chief Warrant Officer 4 Corey Goodnature. In the back of his aircraft are 8 other Night Stalkers and 8 Navy SEALs, a total of 16 men, ready to fly into hell to save 4 of their own. There is a deep, unspoken bond between the pilots of the 160th and the operators they carry. The Night Stalkers know that the men in the back are counting on them to get through. The operators know that the pilots will fly through a wall of fire to get them out. On this day, that bond would be tested in the most tragic way imaginable. As Turbine 33 and its wingman raced toward the Sotalo SAR, the situation on the ground was deteriorating rapidly. The 4 SEALs were being pushed further down the mountain, all of them sustaining injuries. Lieutenant Murphy, in a final act of incredible bravery, exposed himself to enemy fire to get a clear satellite phone signal to call for help, a deed for which he would posthumously receive the Medal of Honor. Corey Goodnature and his crew knew what they were flying into. The initial plan for the rescue mission was for a flight of AH-64 Apache gunships to go in first, survey the area, and suppress enemy positions before the Chinooks arrived. This is standard procedure, a critical step to ensure the larger, more vulnerable transport helicopters aren't flying blind into an ambush. And here is where the story enters a realm of historical debate and the painful what-ifs that haunt the memory of this day. For reasons that are still debated, the Apache gunships were not on station when Turbine 33 arrived. Some accounts suggest they were waved off, others point to a breakdown in command and control, a tragic consequence of the fog of war. The result, however, was unequivocal. Corey Goodnature was forced to take his Chinook into a hot landing zone without the protective firepower he should have had. He couldn't wait. His brothers were on the ground, dying. Following the creed of the special operator, "I will never leave a fallen comrade," he pushed on. As Turbine 33 approached the last known location of the SEAL team, it began to descend into the ravine. The pilots, flying with unmatched skill, were trying to find a suitable spot to put the aircraft down, a nearly impossible task in the sheer rocky terrain. Witnesses in the second helicopter watched as Turbine 33 slowed, preparing to deploy its troops. It was in that moment of extreme vulnerability that the unthinkable happened. A Taliban fighter, positioned on the high ground, shouldered a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, an RPG-7. He fired. The grenade streaked across the sky and struck the Chinook near its rear rotor transmission. The impact was catastrophic. For a helicopter, especially a massive one like the Chinook, losing the synchronization between its 2 rotor systems is an unsurvivable event. The aircraft, mortally wounded, violently lurched and then plunged towards the ground. It exploded upon impact, killing all 16 men aboard instantly. Chief Warrant Officer 4, Corey Goodnature, his crew of 7 fellow Night Stalkers, and the 8 Navy SEALs they were trying to save were gone. Down on the mountain, the sole surviving SEAL of the original team, Marcus Luttrell, watched in horror as his rescue, his hope, was turned into a fireball. In a matter of hours, Operation Red Wings had devolved into the single deadliest day for U.S. Special Operations Forces since the beginning of the War on Terror. The loss of life was staggering. 3 of the 4 SEALs on the ground and all 16 men on Turbine 33. 19 American heroes, lost on one mountain on one brutal afternoon. The aftermath of Operation Red Wings sent a shockwave through the entire U.S. military, particularly the tight-knit Special Operations community. The loss was profound not just in numbers, but in the sheer caliber of the men who had fallen. These were fathers, husbands, and sons. They were the absolute best at what they did, and they were irreplaceable. The tragedy immediately sparked intense debate and scrutiny. The central agonizing question was, what went wrong? The lack of Apache gunship support became a major point of contention. Military analysts and historians have argued that sending a large, relatively slow Chinook into a known enemy stronghold without adequate air cover was a fatal mistake. It violated established doctrine. However, others defend the decision, citing the extreme urgency of the situation. The commanders on that day were faced with an impossible choice: risk a rescue with the assets available, or wait for better support while the men on the ground were being slaughtered. They chose to risk it, a decision born of the warrior ethos to never leave a man behind. There were also questions about the initial intelligence. Was the size of Ahmad Shah's force grossly underestimated? Did the reliance on a small four-man team for such a high-risk reconnaissance mission put them in an untenable position from the start? These are not questions with easy answers. They speak to the immense complexity and inherent chaos of warfare, where plans unravel and brave men are forced to make life or death decisions with incomplete information. The story of Turbine 33 is not a story of failure, but a story of immense courage in the face of a perfect storm of tragic circumstances. In the wake of the tragedy, the nation sought to honor the fallen. Posthumously, Corey Goodnature was awarded the Bronze Star Medal for Valor, the Purple Heart, and the Air Medal, among many other honors from the Army and the Special Operations community. His high school in Albert Lea recognized him as an honorary alumnus. In his home region, a post office was named in his honor, a simple permanent reminder of the local son who gave everything. His name is etched onto the Global War on Terrorism Memorial, and most poignantly, onto the black granite of the Night Stalker Memorial in Nashville, Tennessee. There, his name rests alongside the other members of the 160th who have made the ultimate sacrifice. They are remembered not for how they died, but for the creed they live by. Night Stalkers don't quit. After the loss of Turbine 33, that motto took on an even deeper, more solemn meaning. It became a promise to the fallen that their sacrifice would not be in vain, that the regiment would carry on, that they would never, ever leave a comrade behind. But perhaps the most powerful and enduring legacy of Corey Goodnature is not carved in stone, but lives on in the heart of his family. Years after his father's death, his son, Alec Goodnature, made a decision that speaks volumes about the man his father was. He chose to follow in his footsteps. He joined the military, eventually making his own journey to become an Army aviator. In interviews, Alec has spoken not of anger or bitterness, but of inspiration. He saw his father's life as the ultimate example of service and purpose. He said, "I don't want people to see him as a victim. I want them to see him as a hero who died for what he believed in, and he was with the people he wanted to be with." By choosing to serve, Alec Goodnature ensured that his father's ideals, the quiet courage and selfless dedication, would continue for another generation. It is a legacy not of death, but of life and continuing service. The story of Corey Goodnature is a profound reminder of the true cost of freedom. It's a cost paid not by politicians or pundits, but by ordinary men from places like Clarks Grove, Minnesota. Men who are willing to board a helicopter and fly into the darkest night toward the sound of the guns to save one of their own. He wasn't a character in a movie. He was a real person, a loving father who taught his son to drive, a devoted husband, a trusted friend, and a pilot of incomparable skill. His story forces us to look beyond the headlines and the politics, to the human heart of the soldier. It's a story of sacrifice, not for glory or recognition, but for the person flying next to you and for the family waiting back home. It is the story of a life lived with purpose and courage right up to the final moment. Corey Goodnature and the men of Turbine 33 were not victims. They were warriors who embodied the highest ideals of service, and they answered a call that few could answer. They were night stalkers, and night stalkers don't quit. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.